first of all, let me just say this on a personal note with Bright Star. AJ, I don't know what it is about that story and about the music, but man, that show is incredible.
Isn't it? We all felt very strongly about it. We were all really proud of it. Like the only thing wrong was we even had a lot of people come see it. It's just they didn't pay full price. We just didn't.
Yeah.
We were so close every week. We were like just a couple $1,000s away from breaking even, and um, yeah. Even like even seeing it, I've seen now several high school productions of it. And
Uh,
high schools near in the tri-state area, and it still works. That last act still kind of drives
wow.
you home. It's
It really does.
yeah, it was an amazing collaborative experience too. We had such a great creative team that there was no ego. Everyone was like, Steve and Edie would have an idea about like a choreographic movement, and our choreographer would have an idea about a line, or our music director would, everybody was contributing like how the house should move here, or it was really collaborative. It was a great rehearsal room to be in.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it. I wanted to ask you about that collaboration, that process with Steve and Edie specifically. Are there any, I don't know, are there any stories or any experiences you can remember that
Yeah.
just kind of illustrate that process?
Well, I love the way they write is, I think, pretty unique as a writing team in that they'll just kind of hang out, and Steve will just be noodling around on his banjo, and then he'll get into something, or Edie will hear something. She'll be like, "Oh yeah, play that," and then she'll just kind of start singing on top of it, like a melody, like dun, 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 dun. um, and then she'll eventually find words. But I think my favorite, it's hard to choose, but my favorite memory probably, this was after San Diego. This is when we were in rehearsal in New York before we went to Washington, D.C. Um, and it was our last day in the rehearsal room. And they started the day in a really triumphant way by saying that we had secured a Broadway house so that we would be transferring immediately after
Wow.
DC, that we like had dates. So everyone was feeling jazzed. Um, and probably the part of the show that took the longest to settle or to figure out what they wanted the story to be was from the revelation that Billy is, spoiler alert, is
Yeah.
Alex's son. Um, that moment of revelation, it started off as a solo, like Billy runs away, and the first workshop I did, it was actually a solo song for Billy, and we didn't see Alice Murphy again until the very end.
Wow.
And they're like, "That's not right because we've been tracking Alice this whole time." And so then it was a duet between the two of them in different spaces. Um, and they're like, "That still doesn't feel right," because it was all angst and anger and like bad feelings. And the whole show's about hope and love. Um, and so while we were in rehearsal in New York before we went to Washington, D.C., that moment um, was just Steve had written a monologue for Alice, kind of like, I think maybe in rehearsal with Carmen, she just kind of spoke to what Alice was feeling in this moment. And she had been delivering this monologue. And Edie, that day, that last day in the rehearsal room, we ran the show, and she kind of excused herself. And she was only gone for like 10 minutes. She came back in, and she was like, "Would you listen to this song?" And she sang At Long Last, which is the big 11 o'clock number that kind of steals the show. Um, and we were like, "Oh my God, did you just write that in 10 minutes?" She was like, "Well, only five, but I thought it would be, I waited a bit because I didn't want to seem rushed." It
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
kind of like poured out of her. It was
Wow.
so incredible. Yeah.
Wow.